And what I would like to say, it's an absolute pleasure to be able to stand in front of you, people that are in the field and in the environment on a daily basis that I just happened to come upon through chance. I went blind, and for clarity, I say I went blind because I have no functional vision. Because for years we've had this challenge of upsetting people about political correctness. I don't worry about that. I have no problems with people saying I'm blind. I'm not visually impaired because my vision is not impaired. It just doesn't work. So for me, when I talk about blindness, it's just about me, and I do not wish to offend anybody else in the world. We found out in December 1987 that we'd heard there was a hereditary eye condition in the family. And as I said, we were a dysfunctional family. So my mum and her sister hadn't connected with each other for probably 20 years. And my wife was working in the evenings because I used to work in the day and my wife worked at night in those times because that's what we needed to do to make sure we survived. And a relative said to her, "You're Tim's wife. How's his eyes?" So it was a bit of a shock to the wife. So she didn't tell me, she went and told my brother, and he went and got diagnosed first. And then my diagnosis was going through all the tests, which were horrific back in 1988. And I went to the consultant, sat down, April the 12th, it was my birthday actually it was, my 31st birthday. He said, "Yes, Mr. Reddish, you have retinitis pigmentosa. No, there isn't a cure. It's genetic, it's hereditary. We don't know whether your two sons will get it. Goodbye, I don't need to see you again." A bit of a kick where it hurts. However, an hour and a half later, I was still there. You will either love me or you would not want me as your patient. I'm very analytical. I always ask questions because I want to know. It's just the way I am. So we went through a lot of things. What does this mean to us? What does it mean to me? How's it going to affect me? What's the prognosis? Couldn't tell me. Because back in '88, based where I was and where I lived, they didn't know enough. Later on, we found out by chance, and I got referred to Moorfields and a Professor Bird. But that was by chance. So, how do we get on with it? Well, 7 years, I had a gradual deterioration of what I thought was functional vision. In 1998, I was still riding a motorbike. I'd come home and I'd wonder why people used to jump out in front of me. I didn't realise I'd got tunnel vision. I didn't realise I'd got night blindness. I used to go straight on at traffic islands at night. I've done all sorts of things that happened that now I know why it happened, because being brought up the way I was, we just thought it was the norm. And again, through the dysfunctional family, I never had spectacles until late on in life in my teens because we couldn't afford them, we couldn't do anything about it. So, in 1995, that 7-year journey, I'd completely lost vision. I had no functional vision. So, during that period, I had to change how I functioned, how I thought. I had challenges on a daily basis. And I had to find a great support mechanism to help me. Family were absolutely fantastic. My 2 children were great, very young, 5.5 and 7 when I was diagnosed. We did find out eventually, because there was no blood test then to say whether they would have the condition or not. We had to go through genetic mapping and genetic counselling, going through the family tree and the family history. That took 7 years. So for me and my wife thinking, are they going to get it? Won't they get it? Will they get it? How will it impact on them? Because for us, it was more about them at the time than it was myself. Mainly because I've got it, I'm stuck with it, I'm going to get on with it, and I'm going to make a difference to me and my family. So my family were great, and they say pick your family, pick them good. I was very, very privileged and honoured to meet my wife at the age of 16 years and 9 months, and we met on a blind date. When I was sighted, it was a brother said to me, would you like to go out with my sister? I went, that's dangerous. I said, really? I says, we'll end up not being friends if I go out with your sister. But that was a long, long time ago, and we've been together now for 40 odd years. We're soulmates. We're the best of friends. We have courageous conversations. We don't always agree with each other, but we're still together. And we are what we are because of where we've come from. You can either wait for things to happen, or you can make things happen. I believe you in this room are make it happen people because of the field you're in, what you want to achieve, and what you want to do. I'm a make it happen person all my life. From being in that dysfunctional family, from making things happen to make sure that myself and my brothers and sisters had the best life we could have with the environment we were in. We never waited for anything. We don't believe in people telling us what we can and cannot do. I am the only person in the world that tells me what I can't do once I've tried it first. Continuous change, new learning. Just going to give you a little exercise. You've had something to do already. Could I ask you to fold your arms, please? You're in your comfort zone. That's what you normally do. Now fold your arms the opposite way to what you normally do. Irritating, frustrating, uncomfortable. That's what happens when you lose sight over a gradual basis. You have to change to adapt. Now you can do it. Now we don't want to wait under the Gladwell theory of 1,000 repetitions, 1,000 hours to get your arms crossed feeling comfortable the opposite way. It can work quicker through different techniques, muscle memory and persistence. So you can fold your arms the other way to what you normally do in a shorter period of time and be comfortable with it. But imagine doing that and then you've got to change again. And that's what I had to do with my journey of losing sight. My tunnel was closing, I was getting frustrated, I had to learn new skills. I had to learn to use a white cane. The first time somebody gave me a white cane, I didn't know what to do with it. I said, "What's this for?" They said, "It's a symbol cane." What does that mean? Well, it symbolises that you're visually impaired or blind and people will get out your way. And that was it. That was the sort of like recognition. That was it. I thought everybody that had a white cane was totally blind. They had no functional vision. So I'm being given this white cane when I thought I had good functional vision. Scary moment the first time I went out with my white cane. Now I don't care because it's an aid. Mental toughness. Remember I said earlier that I was premature born. I think that helped me become mentally tough. Nothing phases me. Nothing upsets me in relation to me wanting to achieve. I get upset, like we all do, over things. But I will always do the best I can to be the best I can. I have a saying when I was responsible for all programs, and even as the chairman of a board and a non-executive of other boards, I use this mantra all the time. You only get what you train for. Some people say, "You've been lucky." No, nobody's lucky. I believe the harder you work, the luckier you are. If you work hard and you believe in what you're doing, you will always get the end result. You may not like the end result sometimes. I never compromised the outcome. I had to be adaptable, never flexible. And I know I used that term earlier about flexible with my guide dog, but when I wanted to achieve something, or even achieve something now, I will never compromise what that outcome goal is for me. I will need to adapt and I will need to change, but I'll make it happen. But the end product will be the outcome goal and we'll get there. 2000, Sydney Paralympic Games. I was asked to come back because we had a chance, if we had the right relay squad, to win gold. I'd not won gold at the Paralympic Games. It frustrated me. I'd done everything else, World Championships, European Championships, world records, still holder of world records, never won the gold. So I said, okay, I'll go back and I'll swim and I'll try and make the team for Sydney, because there was no guarantee I'd be on the squad and then on the team that was in the relay. So, went to Sydney. A 4x100 medley relay, 4 athletes. We lost gold by 0.07 of a second over a 4.5 minute race. That's 0.03%. If we'd have improved by 0.03% between 4 of us, we'd have got gold, not silver. I'm not angry, I'm not bitter, but I'm so frustrated over it still. Because I was the only one that swam faster in the relay than I did in the individual events from the other 3 athletes. We're the best of friends. I was a bit angry with them at the time. But we're the best of friends now, and we still get together and have a beer and laugh and joke about it. But that's the difference between being the best and the best of the rest. Now, in your field, if you can improve somebody's vision by 0.03%, it may not seem much, but those small marginal gains can make a massive difference to somebody like me who went from, at some stage, having what I perceived was good functional vision to no functional vision, all the way down at times. I used to test myself. There was no real visual field test in those early days that you could do on a daily basis. I used to test myself to see if my field was closing down. I'd try things with different hand movements and all sorts of shapes, just so I could monitor my own regression, I suppose is the way it was, because I wanted to deal with it. So, what else have I done in sport? I've had a lot of fun. I've run marathons, London Marathon. I've done half Ironmans. I've been part of a 4-man bobsleigh team for a week. That is awesome. Absolutely fun. And guess what? They didn't want me to run and jump in. I said, why? You're blind. I said, my arms push, my legs run, and I can jump in. What's the problem? We did it. They allowed me to run and jump in with the team. It is a great experience, and I was privileged to work with the military and the army team back in the UK. Well, it was in Austria, but it was the British military that gave me that opportunity. Unbelievable experience that I did. Adventure racing, silly things like canoeing and doing obstacle courses in water and cross-country running and cross-country cycling. I love downhill mountain biking on a tandem. I always worry when we come off, when I'm in the puddle and the guy on the front's always standing up dry. But it happens. What is my love now? Cycling is one. I cycled across Great Britain last year, John O'Groats to Land's End. This year, I'm going to go the other way on a tandem. One, it helps my organisation as the British Paralympic Association because it's our designated charity ride. Two, it helps raise profile because I talk to people. Those who come across me know I talk a lot, I'm afraid. I'm a blind man, I talk. But I talk to people while we're cycling and talk about our organisation, what we want to achieve, what we do. And the one thing I am absolutely passionate about is skiing. I went to learn to ski 7 years ago for the first time. Never skied in my life as a kid, never had the resources, never had the funding, never had the opportunity. It's one of these things that you say, I'm going to do something, never put it off, just do it. So I went to learn to ski, and if I had my way, I'd spend my whole winter in the mountains just skiing. I'm free. First time I skied solo, without being attached to somebody through a pole or a bungee cord, I'm not ashamed to say I cried. It was a fantastic feeling to be free and in total control. We just have 3 main instructions, left, right, or fall. And I do fall occasionally, but they got on and it was fine. And I will have the opportunity to do it again, and I will do it. President of the British Paralympic Association. Last week, this time, I was in Sochi. I was head of delegation for the Paralympic Winter Games. Unbelievable experience. I will name drop. We went to Putin's dacha in Sochi for lunch. I've never had a 7-course lunch so quick in my life. But he was there for the whole time. Interesting character, very quietly spoken, very smart, very articulate, and he was very proud of what Russia had achieved around the Olympic and Paralympic Games, and he should be, because they did do something fantastic. 1, for sport, and 2, the Paralympic movement. Irrespective of what else is happening over there, that we can never take away. It's the old yin and yang. There is always something happens. Lots of responsibility with the British Paralympic Association. Our vision, through sport, inspire a better world for disabled people. We want sport to be the focus. We cannot change everything. We want to change the way people think, feel and behave towards disability. That was our mission and ambition around the London 2012 Games. I had to implement change management in the organisation. I had to make things happen because we had to make things work differently to be prepared for that great experience of London 2012. Financial security was important to us, so I had to change again the way we thought. You'd be horrified if I told you that when we came back from Athens, we didn't have enough money in the bank to pay the staff's salary at the end of the month. Now we have 1 year operational reserve. So we've moved on. London 2012 Organising Committee, Lord Coe, Sebastian Coe, was the chairman, and I was privileged to be on that organising committee, that board that was responsible, not just for London, the UK, but the world. I had a specific responsibility to make sure, from a board perspective, that everything we did for the Paralympic Games worked. It was right. And it provided the best environment for the athletes and the fans. And that's something that when you come across your patients, are you providing the best environment so that they have the right experience? I've always been analytical. I've always worked with people, and I've always got the best out of people, and it's about progression. What can we do today that'll make things better tomorrow? So I looked into a bit more, it intrigued me, and I followed it up. And the reason I followed it up is because it's about the future. It's not about me. Nothing I do is about me, it's about what we can achieve for everybody else in the future. So, what did I want to achieve? I wanted to provide analytical feedback to the trial. I'm very analytical. Everything I do, I analyse to the nth degree sometimes. But it's just the way I am because I'm looking for those marginal gains, whether it's in business, whether it's in sport, whether it's in my personal life. How effective could it work? And provide a high profile for the trial. Because this was around the London Games. I was quite a high profile individual. So it enabled the trial to have a more high profile. It was on the One Show on the BBC, which has a vast audience in the UK. So it enabled others to learn about it because, as you people are aware, you do this all the time. Getting exposure, getting people to understand and learn about what is happening in clinical trials can be the make or break of that trial progressing and continuous funding. My wife was excited about the operation, not because of the risk versus reward, like worst case scenario is I die and she gets the insurance. Best case scenario is there's some functional vision comes back, was the fact that she said, this will be the longest you've been in one place with your mouth shut since you was born. What they did, well, some of you may have seen all this, but I have inside of me a unit behind my ear that is the power pack, cabling underneath the muscle of my retina, coming under my eye socket, into the back of the retina chip, right to my optic nerve. It has given me some challenges. It wasn't perfect in some things. I've had some swelling that came up that nobody else has had. It has been giving me a little bit of discomfort. But we talk about that risk versus reward. And remember, the reason I'm doing this is for the future. I have a 6-year-old nephew that's just been diagnosed with RP. They chose not to have any diagnosis in early days. My sister said, no, Tim's turned out all right. If it happens, it happens. I'll send him to Tim to boot camp to sort him out if he gets any help needed. So, it was long, it was recovery. Fortunately for me, I'm quite fit and healthy. So I was crawling up the walls in my hospital room the next morning. Operation finished at 6 p.m. At 9 o'clock, Harbour State, I think I'm ringing my wife saying, get me out of here. I'm ready to go. But they made sure I couldn't leave because they kept my catheter connected to the bed. I think it was a ruse on their behalf that I didn't get up and go running. But I was up and walking the next morning and I was very active. 1 month after the operation, everything working fine. How was I feeling? Apprehensive. First of all, will this piece of kit work? What would it do? What was the first vision when it switched on? The only way I can describe it is because, remember, you had to have had vision. The only way I can describe it was being in a dark room, the striking of a match, and then it flickering at a steady glow. That's what happened when it first came on. Unbelievable. I'm seeing a light source, a dedicated light source of something for the first time ever. One-dimensional artificial vision. So I've got to change how I operate and function again. My brain wasn't happy with that, and the way I function wasn't happy with that, because your depth of perception is different from three-dimensional to one, which all you people know about. So I had to retrain, relearn, daily basis doing activities. Everything is based on a reflective light source. Does the light bounce off something? What is that object? How can I interpret that object? What did I see? Daily living, light sources around windows and doors. We went into Oxford and we went into this old building, and they said, Tim, what do you see? So I'm standing there pointing to windows saying, oh, there's a row of windows there, there's a row of windows above. The windows above are a different shape to the ones below. And Val was with me, my wife, she said their mouths had dropped, and to me it was just, yeah, fine, the windows. Doesn't help me in everyday life, but we don't know what it can achieve in the future. Orientation, it does help you with orientation. Helps you find building lines, helps you find different things. However, for me, I didn't use it because I've learned to adapt and function differently. I travel the world sometimes on my own. So I've learned, so for this to override how I function, has to have a massive improvement. Clinical and laboratory conditions, amazing results. Absolutely amazing. I'm able to see, well I was, and I'll explain why in a minute, to see horizontal lines, vertical lines, diagonal lines, shapes, making them out with the right light conditions. Dinner settings. I was in a restaurant overseas when I went skiing, and it just happened to be the right light conditions, and I saw the shape, silhouette shape in the background of the waitress, and I could make out the dinner settings, which, considering I had not seen properly for over 25 years, is a bit bizarre. And the fact that I didn't need to see them because I've learnt to function in a different way. Clock face was an amazing thing, to be able to read an analogical clock telling the time. The letter C being rotated, telling you where the gap was in the letter C. But remember, one-dimensional, artificial vision, 10 degrees of visual field. I would still have to break the object down and then rebuild it in my brain to tell you what it was. My personal evaluation, oh, by the way, minimum 80% success rate with me reading the clock, which you guys know in research is pretty good. Personal evaluation, it'll depend on the light source, daytime, nighttime, your own functionality. It was good for orientation in hostile environments. Last night was the 7th hotel room I've been in the last 3 weeks. Did I get the toilet door, or did I get the door into the passage? We've all been there, but when you're blind, it sometimes can be a little bit more difficult. It was better in the first 6 to 9 months than it was in the second 4 to 6 months. It deteriorated. Why? We think because of the saline solution that the chip was in developed a leak. It's still very early. It currently doesn't work anymore. But my chip worked longer than anybody else's, and it gained fantastic results. Myself and Professor McLaren have said, we don't need to put the next version of the chip in because I'm very well adapted, but maybe in 2 or 3 times I have offered to do it again. Not for me again. I don't care if I get my sight back. I'm a happy person. I do what I do. But this is about the future. The next version will change from AC to DC to hopefully combat that corrosion through the saline solution. It's being developed all the time. It's being mass-produced now instead of bespoke produced. And when I say mass-produced, it means it's being manufactured in Austria rather than one-offs. When it gets established, it will be a great orientation aid. And I think that's where I would leave it for me. For other people, it has proven more successful on a daily basis. It'll never replace functional vision, but as long as we remember it is an aid, because there is so much happening now out there with gene therapy, with stem cell, with retina implant, with second sight. There is so much out there now that is there, considering, remember when I rocked up in 1998, no, Mr. Reddish, there isn't a cure, go away, we don't need to see you again. I said earlier, would I do it again? Yes, I will. My philosophy, vision isn't just about sight. It is about having the ability to see beyond the here and now. I've achieved so much. 1, because I became blind. 2, because I've had great support mechanisms. And 3, I've not stood still. Do you have that vision to see beyond the here and now? I'm sure you do, especially in the field you're in. And remember, when people come to see you like me, sometimes you're their great hope. And it's a big responsibility for you, and it can be a challenge. But take a step back sometimes and think how they're thinking. But also, hopefully, what I've presented to you today is that it doesn't matter if you go blind, you can still live life to the full. Thank you.